Good morning. I know it's early. I was speaking this morning to General President Shapeberger, and we were talking about the hour that we were getting together this morning, and I said, well, as we were walking down, I said, Jim called me yesterday afternoon, and said, we're going to be meeting at 7 a.m. for breakfast. And I said, 7 a.m.? What's his problem? But I was there about 7:15, on time for me that early in the morning. Let me start out by, first of all, thanking President Shapeberger for the opportunity to be here and address you this morning. And let me let you know that I hold your president, your general president, in high esteem, not because he is the general president of the IAFF, but because he is one that I have been sitting watching the National Executive Council of the AFL-CIO for quite a few years now. I sit there as now the president of CBTU. I sat there as the Secretary-Treasurer of the New York State AFL-CIO before that. And I see those that sit around the board that give a lot of lip service about what ought to be done and what needs to be done in our movement. But in your general president, I see somebody who really gets it. He don't just talk the talk, but he walks the walk. And I want to publicly thank you for being a leader on our National Executive Council of the AFL-CIO to show other leaders what ought to be done in this movement to move us in the direction where we ought to go. Give your general president a hand. Also want to recognize I got on a plane yesterday from beautiful, sunny Buffalo, New York. Now, when I was asked to come down to Orlando in January, being that I'm from Buffalo, I thought that would be a great thing. I can get out of Buffalo, get out of the snow, get out of Western New York, and come down to some 80-degree weather in Orlando. Well, I got on the plane yesterday and it was 13 degrees, and I landed yesterday and it was 43 degrees. I'm glad I brought some winter apparel with me because it ain't quite the 80 degrees that I thought it was going to be when I arrived. But I must give a shout out to the brothers and sisters from Buffalo, New York area, especially a friend of mine who's been a friend for quite a few years, Brother Mark Suggs. Thank you so much, brother, for being a friend of mine. I was on the plane. When I got on the plane yesterday, I saw a couple folks sitting right next to me, and one of them said something about a firefighter. Are you really a firefighter? I said, well, I'm going down to the firefighters' car. We are too. Anybody, are they in the room? There you go, right over there. There you go, right over there. I'm a firefighter, too. I said, well, I'm going to go down and speak at your conference. He said, well, I can't wait to hear you. I said, me either. So figure out what I'm going to say this morning. Let me also thank Jim Ridley for the work that he's been doing over the years with this Human Relations Conference and the Human Relations Committee. Give him a hand for his dedication to the cause. Let me begin my remarks by thanking you for the opportunity to address you today. I don't take it for granted when I'm asked to come to speak to a group of unionists. I don't take it for granted when anybody calls me because they don't have to, and they don't have to ask me to come out. But this is truly a testament to the fact that we all understand that we're in this boat together. We may have come to this country on different boats, but we're totally in the same boat together. We're in the same struggle together. I'm here today because we have a common cause and a common enemy. And I call on you to join me in uniting like never before. I'm here today, brothers and sisters, because we are one. Black, white, brown, yellow, red, we are one. Men, women, gay, or straight, we are one. We are one race, and that is the human race, and that's why we gather here today. I'm here today because no matter what work we do, we are one movement: public sector, private sector, service employees, trades, healthcare, non-traditional work. We are one movement. We are the labor movement, and we're going to work together like never before. Join me in the fight. My sisters and brothers, we must wake up and get it together. We must realize that we don't have separate agendas. We are in this battle together. We must begin to work together like never before. We must begin to demand that our voices are heard within our movement and within our government. No longer will we sit back as labor unionists or trade unionists or workers in general and allow people to tell us what they're going to give us. We're going to stand up, we're going to get at the table, and we're going to tell them what we deserve, and we're going to make sure that we get it in our bargaining and in our communities. Sisters and brothers, when Dr. King marched on Washington, he was marching against poverty. He knew that the greatest obstacle to civil rights was income inequality, and that is still the case today. As I look back at what he stood for when he walked and when he marched and when he led crowds around this country, some 40, 50 years ago, I see the exact same thing happening today. No change, but we're highlighting it more today. This country was built by different people from different nationalities. It is this diversity that has allowed us to prosper and grow into a country that represents all people. Currently, we live in a time where different is viewed as scary. There are scary people crossing our borders. There are scary immigrants entering our country. There are scary kids wearing hoodies. This is the fear that is tearing families, communities, and sadly, our labor movement apart. We have allowed the other side to put scary in front of everything that we represent. Whether it's the color of our skin or the work that we do, we allow them to have others fear us, and we become the enemy. I look at your profession, the firefighter's profession. You're a public employee union, serving the public in everything that you do. But the far right would tell the public that you don't deserve decent wages, that you don't deserve a decent pension, that you don't work enough for what you do. But let somebody's house catch on fire and you not be there within 30 seconds. They will be standing up, raising hell against you. But when you're there and you save them, how many times do you see people saying thank you for what you've done? We've got to stand up and take our rightful place in this community. We've got to stand up as unionists, public employees, private employees. We've got to stand up as one, fighting the good fight. Will you join me? The IAFF and this conference are taking a bold stance of saying it is the difference that makes us great. And in the face of fear, all we see is our brothers and sisters. All we see when we come to these conferences, all we see when we're deciding what we're going to do from day to day is the faces of our brothers and sisters, the faces of our mothers and fathers, the faces of our children and grandchildren. I ask you today, why are you here? And I usually ask this question when I speak. I need you to reflect on why are you in Orlando at this time, at this conference? Well, let me just tell you, if you're here because you thought it was going to be warmer than when you were, you're in the wrong place. If you're here because you wanted to get away from your job for a few days, you're in the wrong place. But if you came to get information, if you came to get power, if you came to get energy from your brothers and sisters to take back in your community, to take back to your locals, to change the status quo, then damn it, you're in the right place to do the right thing. Sisters and brothers, division has become the new language of our political candidates, separating ourselves from people we don't know, banning the helpless from getting aid, and locking our doors on the needy. We in labor are the umbrella for all workers, regardless of what they look like or where they are born or where they pray. We are all created in God's image. See, I believe in the Bible, and I'm a Baptist preacher, so I believe we all came from Adam and Eve, one mother and one father. No matter what the color of your skin is today, no matter what language you speak today, I believe we all came from the same mother and the same father. So you are truly my brothers. You are truly my sisters. And your fight is my fight. And I'm going to be there with you no matter what the fight is. You can count on me, and you can count on the coalition of black trade unionists. The differences that the politicians are talking about, we're told to fear, are the very footholds that are used to discriminate and oppress. You're scared of women on the job? Well, just pay them less and ban them from the industry. You're scared of people of color? Well, just over-police their communities and lock them up faster than anybody else. You're scared of foreigners? Well, ban the needy, but allow cheap exploited labor to enter. When we look at what's going on in this country, you've got one side of the political diaspora that's saying, don't allow any immigrants in this country. Well, save the American Indian. We all immigrants in this country. Save the American Indian. We all came from somewhere to this country. Who the hell are they to say it's time to lock the door because they done made it in? It's time to open up our borders and allow all to come in. This is the home of the free and the brave. This is the country. We open up our hands. We don't close down our fences to anybody. And we sure as hell don't build no gate. Don't build no bridge. Don't build no mountain to keep anybody out of this country. This is the country that made it right for all of us, and it can make it right for our kinfolk that are over and abroad trying to get into this country today. The fight that is going on for immigration reform, and I get it as a black man. You know, they come to me and they say, you don't want these people coming in, these brown folks coming in. They're going to take your job. Well, see, I got a little bit of sense, and I did a little bit of study, and not a whole lot. But I come back to them with this, and this is what I'd ask you to tell them. The issue at hand is we got 11 million folks already here working, paying taxes every day, can't vote or can't be a part of this society. 11 million of them. That's the issue. If they ain't took my job by now, they ain't going to take my job. They already got their own job. Don't fall for the okie-doke. They throw it at us every time you turn around. You've got to know the issues so that you can defeat them. This is just the start. We need leaders to fight. We need leaders to organize. We need to challenge the oppression ahead of us. We need to challenge it head on. We need leaders who value our differences and seek to unite versus divide. We need leaders who reflect their members in this movement and in our electorate. It is most important that we never forget the struggles of our forefathers. Firefighters, you were the home of the disenfranchised Irish immigrants denied jobs in other industries. In the face of racism and fear of the job, the IAFF became the home for the ostracized. Today, your leaders, led by your president, tried to keep the tradition up and the doors open, to need to stay open to those looking for a righteous paycheck in a righteous job. He's looking to open up doors and let people know that being a fighter is a righteous job. And when you do a righteous job for society, you're due a righteous paycheck. He's opening up doors and standing up against the administration who says they love us and tell them to put your money where your mouth is. If you think that this is something we ought to do, if the firefighter industry ought to represent those that we are protecting every day, put your money where your mouth is. If you think that we ought to be out there recruiting those that have not been recruited before, put your money where your mouth is. He's standing up to the politicians, whether they be friends or foe alike. And CBTU is proud to be working jointly with the IAFF in this endeavor. We will join together and tell the administration, Secretary of Labor, to put the money where their mouth is. If the administration truly believes that we should protect our own community, then they should be willing to help us reinstitute this great program that we used to have in the IAFF. Just as you open your arms to the Irish immigrants, you are pushing to open the IAF to all who serve throughout the country. I call on each of you to join in our collective fight against those who wish to suppress us as public employees and unionists in general. We got a fight on our hands right now. We still in the process of dealing with the TPP. But we got another fight on our hands with this Friedrichs and the United States Supreme Court. We ain't got into a system in this country where the courts are starting to dictate what the laws are rather than interpreting the laws. Something's wrong with this. But we got to stand up together. We got the far right setting up things to say that if you're a public sector employee, you ought to have right to work. Right to work. That sounds like a great slogan, don't it? You got a right to work. That's not what they mean, and we know that in this room. What they mean is you got a right to work for less. They mean that you shouldn't have a right to collectively come together as a union and work against the boss. They say we ought to be able to pick you off one at a time. We ought to be able to go to the one that's been there for 20 years and say, well, we paid you too much. We're going to let you go and keep the one that's only been there 2 years. That's right to work, right? Right to work says you got a union in your shop that represents you. You don't have to pay in that union, but they still got to represent you. Right to work. Right to work for less. We got to know what these things are all about, and we've got to fight against those that are trying to take us apart. See, the attack that is being going on public sector unions is a secondary to the attack on the movement as a whole. It's not just about public sector unions, but it's about clamping down. It's about breaking us down. It's about breaking us apart. It's about the Trumps of the world taking over this country. We've got to stand together like never before. We must stand against those who want to take us back to the dark days of yesteryear. I hear one side, and I watch the debates. I watched the Republican debate. I watched the Democrat debate. And I keep hearing the Republicans say we want to take our country back. And my question is, where do you want to take it back to? Do you want to take it back to times when people like me were enslaved? I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Do you want to take it back to the time when Reagan came in and the poor got poor and the rich got richer? I don't know if that's what you want to take it back to. Do you want to take it back to the 60s when we were struggling every day and we were hosed down just for being human beings? I don't know if that's what you want to take it back to, but I don't want to go backwards as a country. I think it's time for us to unite and go forward as a country, and I'm calling on you to stand with me to take this country in the right direction. Martin Luther King, in giving a speech at the 4th AFL-CIO Constitutional Convention in Miami Beach, Florida, December 1961, he said, our needs are identical with labor's needs. He said decent wages, fair working conditions, livable housing, old age security, health and welfare measures, conditions in which families can grow, have education for their children, and respect in the community. That is why Negroes support labor's demands and fight laws which curb labor. That is why the labor hater and the labor baiter is virtually always a twin-headed creature. spewing anti-Negro epithets with one mouth and anti-labor propaganda from the other mouth. I believe he was clairvoyant at that time, and he was talking about Donald Trump. See, he has been spewing anti-labor since he got into the race. And you have to understand where people are coming from. His goal is personal. It ain't about this country. It ain't about the moving the country forward. He got money. He want to get more money. He want to earn more money. Well, he don't want to earn more money. He want to get more money off of your back. And he want to figure out how to exploit workers so that he and the rich buddies of his can get all they can get out of this. It's not about the poor folk. Now, let me be perfectly clear. And I don't know if anybody in this room, you may disagree with me. But can't nobody with billions and billions of dollars that can't tell me what a loaf of bread costs or a gallon of milk tell me what's going to make my life better when I'm just living from paycheck to paycheck. You can't tell me. And I am astounded when I get on and see some of these places where these rallies are going on and folks that are saying, this is my champion. Champion gonna drive you to hell. Champion gonna take everything you thought you had. Champion is say you ought not have a right to live, let alone be on this earth. That's your champion? Champion that don't understand what you need to just live? I got a problem with that. And I think we all need to stand up and speak up against those injustices before us. I want to let you know, as I come to you today, that the issues that we face are not labor issues, they are moral issues. An economy that works for all is a moral issue. The fact that we have, in the next 20 years, the top 1% earners, not in this country, but in this world, will have more than 51% of the world wealth. Let me say that one more time. In the next 20 years, nothing changes. The top 1% in the world will have more than 50% of the wealth of the entire world. And we have an economic system in this country that feeds into that. An economic system that has been on a trend to say the rich get richer, the middle class disappears, and the poor get poorer. We need to have, it is a moral issue that we have an economic system and a tax plan in place that taxes folks fairly so that everybody is taken care of in this country. It's a moral issue. It's a moral issue that we have good jobs for all, that people get a livable wage for the work that they do. Now, see, I happen to believe that in this country, the issue is not a lack of jobs. The issue is a lack of pay for the jobs. Now, watch this. You know, what are you talking about? He done lost his mind. I may have, but let me follow this thought for a moment. We have so many jobs that are paying so little that people have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. If your job paid a livable wage, you could work 1 job. That second and third job that you have could go to somebody else that could work that job, and that where we at 5 point whatever it is, unemployment rate will be disappear because everybody will have a decent paying. We got enough jobs if every job was a decent paying job in this country. And we've got to fight that everybody that does a decent day's work get a decent day's pay in this country. We've got to join that fight as unionists. Moral issues. The issue of quality public education, my sisters and brothers, is a moral issue. I take exception to the fact that we have allowed the teaching group to be under attack in this country. who, no matter where you are in this country, no matter what stature you have in this country, a teacher helped you get there. Think about it. You couldn't be anywhere or nothing in this country. Somebody taught you how to talk. Somebody taught you how to add. Somebody taught you how to read. Somebody taught you how to think strategically and logically. It was a teacher that taught you, whether it was your grammar school teacher, your high school teacher, or your college professor. It was a teacher that got you to where you are today. And we've allowed this right wing to vilify the teachers and say they're not worth what they get paid. They're not doing enough. Well, they keep increasing the class size in our community, and they keep taking away. When I went to school a few years ago, just a few. I was just talking to my sister-in-law the other day, and I said, I remember when we went to school, I got my shots in school. I remember that. I remember going to school and getting my eyes checked in school. I remember that. I remember getting my ears checked in school. All these have been taken away from the school system. I remember having class sizes where we could talk to the teacher if we had a problem, and the teacher could be there to help us. I remember those days. But they taken all that away from the teachers, and they tell them to teach anyway. They put 35 students in a class, got 2 acting up, and they want them to teach the other 33, while 2 have taken the attention away from the class. We've got to stand up for those teachers. We've got to make sure that every child gets a quality public education in this country. We've got to stand with our teachers. We've got to stand because it's a moral issue that the criminal justice system is not fair for all. We got to tell this country that we need to educate and quit incarcerating. If we spend 10% of the money we spent on prisons, on education, we would decrease the prison population exponentially. We've got to change our focus. Fair distribution of wealth is a moral issue. Tolerance and equity is a moral issue. We've got to look at people for who they are, not who they love. We've got to look at people for who they are and not what they look like. These are moral issues. These conferences, these human relations conferences that we come to are a time for us to get educated and motivated. But the work begins not at the conference, but when we get home. How do we change the status quo, you may ask? I'm glad you asked the question. We got to organize. We got to organize our family. We got to organize our friends. We've got to organize our communities to get involved. It's time for us to start speaking with one united voice. Let us maintain unity and fight against injustice. I know it takes teamwork to make a dream work. And we cannot stop fighting. We cannot accept the walls they want to build. CBTU fights to break those walls down and never build them up, as anybody can join our organization. We are a voice for the voiceless, as you are a home for the exploited. Together we can make this country all it can be. It's time for action and not excuses. And I say starting now, starting right now at this moment, let's show them that they cannot divide us. My question is, will you stand with me this day? Will you stand with me to educate our family, our friends, and our neighbors on the issues? Will you stand with me to reach down and pull up young workers, activists into this movement? Will you stand with me to bring our community issues to labor's table and labor's issues to our kitchen table? Will you stand with me for an economy that works for all? Will you stand with me for a just and fair criminal justice system? Let's start a new way of doing business. This is our time. This is our season. God bless you, and God bless our great movement.